Brock Purdy and Trevor Lawrence's future fantasy value has skyrocketed over the month of December. We get into the players who have gained and lost the most stock following the 2025 fantasy season on today's episode of Locked On Fantasy Football.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Fantasy Football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcasting network. I'm one of your co-hosts, Michelle Magdziuk, and when I'm not doing this, I'm a researcher and fantasy analyst with NFL Network.
And I'm your other co-host, Vinnie Iyer. I'm writing about NFL fantasy and betting for sportingnews.com.
Today, we are going to be talking about the players whose stock is up the most and whose stock is down the most from where we are at the beginning of the season, where we drafted these guys for the 2025 fantasy drafts, and then what we expect them to be next year and their value in the draft next year. So let's talk about a couple quarterbacks here who have really risen their stock over the last month, and that's Brock Purdy and Trevor Lawrence. I mean, Brock Purdy has been on absolute fire. He has had 5 touchdowns in back-to-back games. He has put up at least 26 fantasy points in every week since week 15. So if you had him throughout your fantasy playoffs, he most likely won you a championship. He's the quarterback 2 on average this season, behind only Josh Allen. Purdy, and he's been doing it with so many injuries across the board last night it was without Pearsall, without Kittle, right? He hasn't had Ayuk all year. So I've been really impressed with what Purdy's been doing.
Yeah, I think also a couple developments happened for Purdy's numbers. I think he came back a lot healthier after the toe injury. I wish he had not rushed back. We would have got a few more great games from him if that had happened. Maybe the 49ers would have already won a couple more games to be the #1 seed without him. They struggled a little bit. Like, Mac Jones was solid, and everyone was talking about that. Remember, should Mac Jones be the starter over Brock Purdy? No. We saw a healthy Brock Purdy takes this offense to another level. Mac Jones, Jimmy Garoppolo, they give it a certain floor, but he gives it a ceiling because he makes a lot of big plays. And I also like is the fact that the running game had sputtered a little bit, right? It was not as efficient. They were under 4 yards a carry with McCaffrey, so he had to take on more of the board. When he had George Kittle, he was rolling and rocking with him. He didn't need to wait for Brandon Ayuk. He made it work with Jawan Jennings and whoever was out there, Demarcus Robinson, Kendrick Bourne, now even Jake Tongas without George Kittle. So he's really locked in. You can tell he's very experienced in the Kyle Shanahan offense, understands all the shifts and motions, understands all the routes, the concepts, all that stuff. So he's just evolving into his prime as a veteran quarterback, and that's what we're seeing in a great system. And it can get better. I mean, I know Brandon Ayuk is on the fence here on if he's going to be back. Who cares? Because it's already looking good with this receiving core. I could see them drafting a receiver high in the first round. Maybe a Carnell Tate out of Ohio State would slip a little bit there to that spot, or Jordan Tyson. Any of these receivers would be special in this offense. So I really like the way Purdy's playing right now. He's also running with just confidence, scoring that way, doing the bootleg thing as well to add to his value. So everything is really clicking for Purdy.
It is, and the defense has been so bad, right? And they're still going to have a ton of holes going into next year. I can't imagine they can fill all those. Their defense is pretty depleted. They'll get back some big-name guys, but still, that's always going to be good for Purdy, too, if the defense continues to allow points going into next year. Now, Trevor Lawrence has really come on as well. Yesterday, he didn't even throw a touchdown, and he still scored 23 points because he scored 2 rushing touchdowns. He now has 4 rushing touchdowns over the last 3 games. He scored at least 23 fantasy points in each of the last 3 games with monster performances in week 15 and week 16. And I mean, just throughout the year, now he's a quarterback 6 on average. And that was with a pretty bad start of the year, which he was like just doing his normal stuff, and not being a great fantasy producer. But that has switched in the second half of the season with Liam Cohen. And I mean, if this is the new Trevor Lawrence, he's like, where does he get drafted next year? Does he go as high as like a Mahomes or a Jalen Hurts or a guy like that?
Yeah, I did like T-Law a lot before the season. I also talked about Matthew Stafford. Again, system quarterbacks in elite systems typically produce. And it just took a while for Trevor Lawrence. I think it was just the whole, what do we do with Travis Hunter? Brian Thomas Jr. was hurt and not as effective there from what he did last season. So then they got the Jacoby Myers acquisition they needed, right? Just a sharp route runner who's going to get open, understand the concepts of Cohen's offense. Parker Washington was also huge. His reemergence of this offense, what he could do. And then you put those together, and then Brian Thomas looks like a good third option all of a sudden, right, with those guys. And then you have Brenton Strange balling out at tight end. You had Travis Etienne become a bigger factor in the passing game. So all these things kind of opened up. It's almost like he got all of Baker Mayfield's soul and mojo with Liam Cohen moving there, and it was ripped out of Baker Mayfield and went into him. But it's into overdrive because, no offense to Baker, Trevor Lawrence, I think, is a better physical talent. He's got better arms strength. He's a better athlete. So he can do everything Baker can with all his throws and execute even better than that. So that's what you're seeing with the numbers here, and that's what happened in Baker. Not the same without the OC. And you see that a little bit in Chicago as where Caleb Williams stealing some of the mojo that we had with Jared Goff last season.
Now, another quarterback I want to get to, Jaxson Dart. He came back to life after that week 16, 0.02 fantasy performance. But, I mean, there's really been 2 bad games from him as a starter for fantasy. And it was week 13 in New England and that week 16 game against the Vikings, who've just been shutting down opposing offenses as of late, especially the passing game. So yesterday against the Raiders, 25 fantasy points, again, scores 2 more rushing touchdowns, has 48 yards on the ground. I mean, most of his starts this year, he's had at least 45 rushing yards, upwards of 50 and 60. So he's been using his legs and averaging 20.1 points per game as a starter. Only Josh Allen, Purdy, Drake May, Stafford, and Mahomes have averaged more this year. And he's doing that without any weapons. Like, he hasn't had Malik Neighbors, right? He lost Cam Scatterboot. Hopefully they add more playmakers for him next year, get him a real head coach, all that good stuff. But what he's doing on What a Bad Team, I mean, he's going to be going early in drafts next year. That's for sure.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of what we got from Jalen Hurts when he started to play over Carson Wentz. We saw flashes of what he could do. It was running based, right? He gave you a cheat code where you would run, but then you saw the glimpses of the passing. And we talked about the weapons. It's funny, Michelle, I had to look this up, and I had to make sure it was real, that Wan'Dale Robinson got to 1,000 yards. I'm like, really? That happened? Like, it was such a steady progression here since Malik Neighbors went down. But he's been very consistent getting the yards from what Jaxson Dart has done. Theo Johnson, we know, has emerged as a key weapon there. So you get Neighbors back with Robinson and Theo Johnson. And then, look, these backs are still capable, whether it's Tyrone Tracy or Scatterboot. They can catch passes out of the backfield. And, of course, Dart is a running cheat code. So everything is lining up well. I'm very curious to see who they hire as head coach. I don't want them to blow up stuff here. Totally. I want to keep some of the concepts that have made him good this year, but then focus on some that can make him great, right? All around, where he throws better downfield. He's more consistent. I don't want the running to go away, and I was worried about that when he had the concussion scare. I thought, oh, they're going to keep him from running, but he has just been a more careful and more efficient runner the way that we've seen Jalen Hurts or Josh Allen do that as they've evolved. So I'm excited about all 3 of those guys. I mean, this tells you how much an offensive system means in fantasy football. If you have the right weapons, the right scheme, you're probably going to get a quarterback that produces, and you're seeing that in all 3 cases.
It will be interesting to see how high Jaxson Dart is drafted next year. If he gets too high, like, does he become a guy of interest in the top 5 quarterback picks, right? Or is he top 8? If he's top 8, I probably will be more interested in him. If it's top 5, that's going to be really nerve-wracking to take a shot on him. But either way, he is going to have some high draft costs next year. We will get to more guys whose stock is looking up after this fantasy season right after a quick break. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Whether you're starting a new routine or jumping into player projections for the first time, trying something new can feel like a challenge. But with Prize Picks, it always feels good to be right. With high-pressure football matchups every weekend and elite hoops action almost every night, the action never slows down. And Prize Picks lets you stay in control. PrizePicks is the daily fantasy app that makes watching sports even more exciting by letting you build lineups based on the player projections. No drafts, no waiting. Just pick more or less and play your way. And it's super easy to get started on PrizePicks. They make it quick and simple, and the app is super user friendly to navigate. It just also makes watching any games more engaging, more fun, especially when you're following individual player performances. Just download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. I want to thank you all for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen of the day. And thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcasting network. You're already with us every day. So now take it up a level and go ad free. Join the Everydayer Club today and get Locked On Fantasy Football with no interruptions, members only Discord access, and more, all for just $5 a month. Or you can do $50 a year if you want to get some savings. Go to lockedonfantasyfootball.supercast.com or check the link in the show notes to learn more. All right, let's continue with more guys who have really, upped their game, especially as of recently, that they're going to be more intriguing going into next year than they were this year. And that has to start with Chris Olave, wide receiver 9 on average this year at 13.1 points per game. That's more than CeeDee Lamb, A.J. Brown, Nico Collins have averaged this year. And since week 9, since he's got Tyler Shook at quarterback instead of Spencer Rattler, he's averaging 15.8 points per game in half PPR. Only Puka and JSN have scored more points among wide receivers since week 9 than Chris Olave. He has been on a roll with Tyler Shook.
Yeah, Chris Olave, he's also seen massive target volume. That was early in the season as well with Spencer Rattler, the quarterback. Even before they made that change, he was right up there with Jamar Chase, getting a ridiculous amount of targets, and only grew once they moved Rashid Shaheed, once they moved Brandon Cooks. It was all about him. It got more and more about him with the targets. Now, he does need some help, I think, next year in this particular offense. We'll see if they get him his Devontae Smith to his A.J. Brown and the Kellen Moore offense. And yet another offensive system starting to click with the team, right? Kellen Moore, look, produced big fantasy seasons there with not only Jalen Hurts, but Dak Prescott and even Justin Herbert a little bit, not as much. But when you look at the situation, he's just a very good offensive coach. And Tyler Shough has shown that he should be the starting quarterback without question, I think, next year as a second-round pick. So he's really surprised me. I don't think he would be so good so fast, but the system is really favorable. And Chris Olave really benefiting from that. And really, you look at Juwan Johnson's numbers as well. So there's a clear authority here. It's going to go Olave, Johnson. We'll see if they get one more guy to help Shough, and he's another guy that could be a really nice value here in fantasy drafts. But Olave loving it. He finally gets a quarterback that can turn the knee. And go figure, it wasn't like a Derek Carr type, anybody like that. He needed a rookie to really open it up, and Olave's looked fantastic and really living up to his potential. Let's hope, Michelle, Garrett Wilson, A, stays healthy, and B, gets a benefit like this. So he can join Olave and JSN, his former Ohio State buddies, and break out the way he should.
Yeah, hopefully he gets a real quarterback one of these days. Now, Chase Brown has had a great couple weeks to end the fantasy season with 31 points in week 16, 27 points yesterday in half PPR. But really, since week 8, once they finally got Joe Flacco and then Joe Burrow came back, right? He wasn't playing with Jake Browning. He has been fantastic. So since week 8, he's averaging 19 fantasy points per game in half PPR. That's third among running backs behind only Christian McCaffrey and Jahmyr Gibbs since week 8. It was a terrible, terrible start for him, but those fantasy managers who were patient and gave it time, he has really come through and been very consistent the second half of the season and then put up some monster games here to end the year.
Yeah, I told you how much he reminded me of Austin Eckler, right? The way he's used, he can catch passes. He's actually very efficient in the red zone, the way that Eckler was with his big touchdown totals. And Brown, we're seeing that, has that ability. He's not necessarily the biggest guy. He's not just a pounder. And look, they've threatened to put some other backs on with him, but he's strong and compact. So he can really handle a nice workload in this offense as well, which I also like. And he's pretty durable. I mean, if you look at it overall, for being a smaller back, he's just on the field all the time and taking whatever they need. And Eckler was not durable in the end. So let's hope that Brown stays that way going forward. And this is like the Bengals thing they do, right? Don't they do this at the end of every year? If they don't make the playoffs, oh, they're looking good. They're playing well. They're putting it together. Can we get wire-to-wire Bengals? Joe Burrow, stay healthy next year because it unlocks everybody. Chase, T. Higgins, the tight ends get involved. You get Brown to produce. Let's just see Joe Burrow on the field. And it's very not expanded, right? It's basically Chase, Higgins, Brown. These are the guys who get it done here for the Bengals week in, week out. So if Burrow's out there or even anyone decent is the backup next year, if Burrow should get hurt again, Chase Brown is going to continue this. Let's just knock on wood he'll stay healthy with this kind of usage.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, tight ends, let's get to some of these guys because next year there might be a little bit of, an overtake at the top of this position with these young guys, especially with Kelsey maybe retiring, Mark Andrews falling off the face of the earth, right? So Harold Fannin Jr. and Colston Loveland are really looking up compared to what we thought of them, to start this year. But Fannin is the tight end 5 in total fantasy points this season. And he's been really getting it done over the last month and a half. He has a touchdown in 4 of the last 5 games. He probably would have had a monster game in week 17 because immediately he had that long touchdown, but he got hurt on that touchdown, unfortunately. But he's going to be great for next year. It feels like David Njoku time is kind of done in Cleveland, right? And it's going to move to Harold Fannin Jr. And then Colston Loveland, he's really picked it up too. He's been on the field way more often recently, 83% of snaps in week 16, 82% in week 17. So he's getting more playing time. Really big game for him in week 17 against the 49ers with 94 yards and a touchdown and 10 targets. He's tight end 6 on average since week 9. So it started slowly. He wasn't getting a lot of playing time for a while there. Cole Kmet was stealing, a lot of the work, and he wasn't seeing targets. But that has switched over, as of recently.
Yeah, the buzz started among the rookie tight ends with Tyler Warren, and he was off to a great start. Daniel Jones, he was clicking. He was a big part of that Colts offense, and the Colts offense went the tank. Really, they couldn't do anything, and then Jones got hurt, and that was the end of that. Well, look at the recent breakout tight ends, right? We've had Sam Laporta do as a rookie, Trey McBride flash, and then he broke out in year 2. We had Brock Bowers do it immediately as a rookie. And now you're seeing the rookie tight end emerge more and more as a reliable asset over the course of an entire season with Harold Fannin again. David Njoku worked if it was Joe Flacco or some other veteran quarterback, but really Shedeur Sanders unlocked Fannin, I'll say, because he was his go-to guy all over the field. He just could get open. He's got an athletic mismatch. He's a wide receiver, tight end hybrid. Loved him, the Senior Bowl practices and all that. So he's living up to his high athleticism he showed as a prospect. So I think he's a good guy to build around, right? Almost like Trey McBride, like get those receivers around him. And they don't have any receivers right now. They got to work on that. Jerry Jeudy and Cedric Tillman, they got to get somebody there that you can really trust and not trot these guys out. But I think much like you saw with McBride getting help from Michael Wilson and then Marvin Harrison Jr., they're kind of building around that tight end more so in the offense. So I love that. He's a centerpiece. And I can also see that Colston Loveland might be a centerpiece at one point. I think the future, we'll see about Luther Burden. He did get hurt, but middle of the field, slot and tight end. You just look to Ben Johnson in Detroit. Who are the guys that emerged? Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta, and then you eventually develop the deep threat, who right now happens to be DJ Moore. So that's how the parallels all come there. Loveland is a first-round pick, and he was taken ahead of Warren. They want to get this guy involved as a dominant receiver. So Fannin, Loveland, athletic mismatches all over the field, fits the profile of all these guys, not just the old guys with Kelsey and Kittle, but also now with the young guns, so to speak, with Bowers, McBride, Laporta. It's just a great generation of tight ends that are coming in.
And now if the Bears want to move on from Cole Kmet next year, they would actually save over $8 million. So if they wanted to do that, they might not need to. I haven't looked at their cap issues or anything like that. But that would be interesting to see where those guys go next year in the draft, especially with so many disappointing veterans as of late for the tight end position. Now let's transition to the players whose stock is down from the start of the season to now, and who probably won't be going super early in drafts next year. We'll get to that right after a quick break.
All right, this episode of Locked On Fantasy Football is brought to you by a new sponsor to the show. Let's welcome in Gusto. Let's be real. No one starts a business for the joy of calculating tax withholdings or managing payroll spreadsheets. That's where Gusto comes in, to take the stress out of your payroll, benefits, and HR so you can focus on running your business and supporting your team wherever they need it. Gusto is the all-in-one remote-friendly payroll and HR platform that makes managing your team simple, transparent, and fast. Whether you're hiring, onboarding, or paying employees, Gusto helps you do it all from one place without the hassle or hidden fees. You can enjoy ultimate payroll runs for one monthly price, which means no surprises with charges at the end of the month. And knowing you can reach certified HR experts anytime gives you real peace of mind when you're running your business. Try Gusto's automated tools like offer letters, onboarding materials, and direct deposits. They save you hours every week. Try Gusto today at gusto.com/LockedOnNFL. That's gusto.com, Gusto, gusto.com, LockedOnNFL, and get 3 months free when you run your first payroll. That's right, 3 months of free payroll at gusto.com/LockedOnNFL. Again, that's gusto.com/LockedOnNFL. All right, it is a time to look at some sad guys that really let us down this season. I think we saw the first guy dropping off. I mean, he did have 40 touchdowns, but to drop off to the point where it was cringy to play him with the turnovers and you were afraid, what is he going to do next? Baker Mayfield. Really, this can be grouped in also with Bucky Irving. I mean, the Buccaneers offense. Look, Josh Grizzard was not the offensive wizard we thought taking over for Liam Cohen, so they had to be disappointed there. It started promising, but then you'd think it was going to get better when they got their receivers back. It did not get better. It actually got worse. So I don't know what you do with Baker Mayfield. Again, I think they might need to make a coordinator change to get him back on track. It worked with the past two guys, but it wasn't 3 for 3 here.
Yeah, and now it did start so well. The beginning of the season, it looked like he was going to do exactly what he did last year, but that fell off. All the injuries definitely hurt. Now, I mean, 2 of the last 3 weeks, he hasn't killed you. He scored 19 points in week 15, 17 points yesterday. So it's not like he destroyed your fantasy hopes there in the playoffs, but too many bad games over the second half of the season, too many turnovers, like you said, and too many games with one touchdown. You know, you need at least multiple touchdowns from Baker because you're not typically getting a ton of rushing yards from him. But yeah, Baker's been a disappointment. Quarterback 21 on average in starts this year. And he was being drafted, obviously, well ahead of that. He was being drafted as a top 8 guy this season. So that was disappointing. Bucky Irving, like you mentioned, it's just, I mean, he was going late first, early second round, right? And he's the running back 18 on average this year. But the last 3 weeks, it has been horrendous by him. If you started him, he's killed you 7 points, 7 points, 5 points. So it's going to be interesting to see where he goes next year because Sean Tucker keeps stealing the goal line work. And Bucky Irving's not getting enough receiving yards. That's for sure. Only got 9 carries yesterday. Like, this backfield has just been confusing. So does he get more workload next year if there's a new play caller? He's going to be a scary draft pick next year.
Yeah, the talent was there. It just was the usage. I think the scheme was just not as fruitful. I mean, we just saw Liam Cohen's a great offensive mind. You're seeing Travis Etienne rebound as well, the way that Bucky Irving was producing last year. So again, the Bucs are going to need to find their offensive mojo again. I'm not saying bring back Bruce Arians or Canals is not going to be available. Cohen, you might see if any of the Jaguars guys under him could be available to bring back here. But yeah, I think they've just been highly disappointing, especially with their defense not being all that what it is. Like you'd expect higher points and is not produced from that offense. Now, one guy, look, I don't know if it's going to just be a total repeat, but I'm done with this guy. Like he's got so much talent and I'm just done with this guy in terms of just not living up to expectations, whether it's reality or fantasy. Justin Herbert. I mean, this dude should be crushing it like his rookie season every year. The problem is he isn't, I think, not the ideal offense for what he wants to do. And I also think things happen, right? His offensive tackles broke down. He lost Rashawn Slater before the season. Joe Alt is there. But a lot of people have lost tackles. A lot of people have had injuries in front. and they just adjust to get the job done. This guy does not. And it's Justin Herbert. I mean, come on. I mean, you also gave him extra weapons. You had Ladd McConkey was the only thing in town. You give him Orlando Gadsden 2, Keenan Allen, Quentin Johnson reemerges as a thing, and his numbers are all going up. I do not understand this. I don't understand having that much physical talent not being this good, but the numbers just weren't there down the stretch. And it was just like every time you had to duck, no pun intended there, that him getting sacked all the time. That's what I basically have the memory of his fantasy production during the season is him just getting sacked over and over again.
Yeah, I mean, only one good game since week 10, and that was against the Cowboys, who everybody has destroyed.
Yeah.
And you're right, like he has the weapons. Yeah, the offensive line was beat up, but I mean, this is now the 4th straight year of disappointing fantasy production. He was the quarterback in 2021, and then since then it's been quarterback 15, quarterback 14, quarterback 12, now quarterback 11 this year. It's just like, that's just what we have to think of him. A low end quarterback 1, maybe a quarterback, a top end quarterback 2, but like he shouldn't be drafted early with these other big names. He's not putting up the production. It's been too many years now. If he ends up breaking out next year, cool. But like you said, how long can we just keep trying for him to be a thing? Now, running back Ashton Jeanty, let's talk about him. He's going in the first round fantasy drafts. Running back 17 on average this year. A lot of terrible games. Like he had some big games in there that's helped his overall, production look a little bit better, but so many games with 6 or fewer fantasy points. Even against the Giants yesterday, he couldn't get it done. Just 8 points on 18 touches. That's not enough. And I don't know what's going to get so much better for him. Like they're going to have to find a quarterback. They got to upgrade their offensive line. They need a better play caller. It's a lot that has to happen for him to be, to get back into that first, second round consideration for next year. I will say for some upside, Bijan Robinson was the running back 17 as well in his 2023 rookie season. And obviously it's gotten much better since then. So still, I'm not going to give up on Jeanty, but I don't think he's even going to be considered a first rounder next year.
Yeah, let's see what they do at offensive coordinator, see what type of offense they run. They got to repair their offensive line. They need some receiving help to have some threats downfield. They need a quarterback. Oh, yeah, they need a quarterback to make people fear anything in their offense at this point. Ashton Jeanty was just caught, I think, in a burning building, right? He was trying to get out of there, do his best, but this has been an absolute dumpster fire with the Raiders the entire season. I mean, shutting down Max Crosby when he's not even hurt. Okay, Brock Bowers, look, injury appears out of nowhere and we're done and we shut him down. So I don't know what's going on here with the Raiders. They're just a dysfunctional organization. Chip Kelly, remember all this talk about should he stand up and run? Should he crouch and run? This is so stupid. Like they did not take advantage of this talent at all. And that was my biggest concern when I heard that draft card 6 overall to the Raiders. I said, are they going to be decent enough as a team with their offensive line and their offense to help this back? Like bad teams do not help talented backs. Yeah. And the Falcons probably were that a little bit with Bijan, and they stopped and just realized we have a talent on our hands. We got to get him the ball, figure out first and foremost what to do here. So I have a little bit of optimism, but I'm not going to bang the table to take him early. I mean, I think part of it is on Jeanty himself. Like I didn't see him run all that special. Like some of these guys can overcome that, where I feel like Bijan still a little burst and like flash, right? His rookie year that I got excited about for year 2. I didn't even get excited about what Jeanty was doing here. So yeah, I think the Jeanty business is nothing I want to get involved with yet. I'll wait and see. I guess I'll be patient to see what their offense looks like. But right now he's going to be buried among the RB2s at best.
Now we have 2 wide receivers in their second year that really disappointed. Marvin Harrison Jr. again, like people were giving him the benefit of the doubt after his bad rookie season where he finished as the wide receiver 42 on average. Then he comes back in 2025 and he finishes, well, right now he's a wide receiver 42 on average. So no increase. And what's really irritating is we've seen another wide receiver in Harrison's role and Michael Wilson absolutely excel. But Harrison can't. Now, maybe it's just not the right system for him. I cannot imagine Drew Petzing still has his job. This was my worry going into this year. I said, well, what's going to change? Like the same coaches are still there. Kyler, was still going to be there. So hopefully there's a lot of changes this year, right? There should be a change at quarterback. There should be a change at head coach. There definitely should be a change at OC. Maybe that will fix things, but there's no way you can feel great about drafting Marvin Harrison Jr. anytime early next season. And then Brian Thomas Jr. just fell off the face of the earth after an amazing rookie season where he finished as the wide receiver 4 overall. He's now the wide receiver 48 this season on average. Parker Washington and Jacoby Myers are outperforming him. Myers got a contract extension with the Jaguars as well. Travis Hunter will be back next year. And Liam Cohen's thriving, but Brian Thomas Jr. is not thriving in Liam Cohen's system. So maybe he can get traded, but with the Jaguars in this offense, I don't see it working out for him.
Yeah, I think there's definitely potential of a trade here, Brian Thomas Jr. I don't know what it was. Like maybe they'll go to the 49ers and be in their system with Mac Jones and try to get acclimated there, and maybe a familiar guy that can get him as the alpha there. But in this situation, yeah, I think that's the biggest reason they made this Myers trade, right? I didn't think they believed in Brian Thomas being the go-to guy week in and week out for Trevor Lawrence. So you're right. I mean, it's a little dicey here. I don't know what you're going to get. Like, I mean, the Hunter thing is a great point. And I think he was in Liam Cohen's doghouse for a lot of the time. Like, he didn't try in some games. So those are things you can't correct, Michelle, right? Scheme and quarterback and all these things you can correct. Well, look at, again, Marvin Harrison Jr. I think that just the effort and questionable, like, just overall presence has to be there. I mean, you're right. Michael Wilson stepped into that exact same role, produced every single week with Trey McBride. I don't care. He had Jacoby Brissett at quarterback. He had the backup in there. Well, we thought, okay, Harrison and Murray are going to be there. Well, I think the biggest thing that drew us into Marvin Harrison Jr. is not just the physical talent, but the name. We were like, oh, he's got to be good. Marvin Harrison was an awesome fantasy player. He's got to be good. His son's got to be good. He's got Kyler Murray. Don't look at the names, folks. This is what we've learned. Names don't mean anything. We didn't know who Harold Fannin Jr. was. A lot of people came out of Bowling Green. Now you know who he is. We didn't know Trey McBride out of Colorado State. Now you do, because forget the name of where they come from. What they do and what they produce is what we're looking for with the stock risers. And there you have your risers and fallers here. Pretty easy to see here all throughout the season who we bumped up and who we bumped down.
Yeah, hopefully, you got your fantasy football win. Maybe you need something to happen tonight to officially get that championship trophy for yourself. But good luck. Enjoy your night. I want to thank you all for tuning in to Locked On Fantasy Football. Tomorrow, we will get into some Week 18 rankings. If you still play Week 18, we got your back. We'll help you. So make sure you subscribe and follow so you get all the latest episodes. If you never want to miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is built for you. You can get the Fantasy Football podcast ad-free, plus members-only Discord access and more. Head to lockedonfantasyfootball.supercast.com or check the link in the show notes to join the club. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye, y'all.